You might have noticed cameras quietly going up all over your city or town. They blend in, often hidden amongst traffic lights and red light cameras, or mounted on poles by the roadside. They're easy to miss, but they're part of a growing network designed to track where everyone drives at all times. What if attending a protest meant your information was logged in a permanent database? What if showing up at an opposition party meeting added your name to a police report? What if visiting a shooting range, a reproductive health clinic, a mosque, your lover's home, or even just your child's school created a searchable record the government could access? Welcome to the world of automatic license plate readers. They started as a niche police tool, but today, thanks to companies like Flock Safety, they've spread into neighborhoods, HOAs, schools, and private businesses all over the country. And these cameras have been supercharged. Automatic license plate readers aren't standalone cameras anymore. They're networked together with every scan uploaded to the cloud into searchable databases. Police are one of Flock's primary clients. When a department buys a Flock subscription, they're not just getting cameras. They're getting access to a national database of footage. The way it works is simple. If a department agrees to share its own camera data, it can then search data from every other agency across the country that has done the same. The result is a real-time surveillance grid, one that logs where millions of people drive.
Our local city council started putting Flock cameras into our city. When the city council members were asking about these cameras, one of them had said, everybody's doing it, so we should just do it too. I thought, wow, our lawmakers, just like that, they're giving away our privacy, and we really have no recourse.
We're no longer free to move without being tracked.
People don't realize that the license plate readers are now the most prevalent surveillance tool in existence on Earth now, and I think that's been true since about 2018.
Wow. In this video, I'll explain how automatic license plate readers work and how they're far more than just cameras. We'll talk about how we got here and allow this dragnet search of everyone's movements. And we'll explore how we can protect ourselves. Let's start with understanding what these cameras are.
They're essentially high-speed cameras.
Jonathan Hofer is a research associate at the Independent Institute, and he explained that while traditional cameras simply snap a photo if you run a red light or speed, Flock cameras take a photo of everyone that passes by at all times.
A lot of these cameras are set up on purpose over high traffic intersections and also high traffic freeways and highways. They can read up to like 200 cars every couple seconds. When a vehicle passes these cameras, they scan the car, they locate the license plate, they record the license plate, and they store that data along with a timestamp and record of where your car is and where it has been.
In that record, they also include details about the exact fingerprint of your vehicle, so the make, model, color of your vehicle, and they use AI to detect any other visual flags.
It's not just a snapshot of your license plate number. It reads the demographics of your vehicle. It's a brown car. It's got fender damage.
This is Lee Schmidt. He's currently in a fight with the city of Norfolk after learning that cameras in his neighborhood were uploading location data to Flock servers and that the city had shared access to that data with police.
It can build a profile of where you've been, and that tracking ability is quite nerve-wracking. I don't like being tracked every day.
There are many companies that make automatic license plate readers, but Flock really changed the game. They've become one of the most widely recognized companies in the space, with over 80,000 AI-powered cameras across the US and having quietly expanded into more than 5,000 US communities over the past 8 years. So what exactly did Flock do differently? First, they made the cameras cheap. They marketed them to HOAs and private businesses as a neighborhood safety tool. Then they connected them to the cloud. But here's where it gets complicated. When you sign up with Flock, you're not just buying a camera. You are buying a subscription to Flock's cloud service. Every scan is uploaded to Flock's servers, and these scans are searchable through Flock's online portal. All footage in one central place, all searchable by countless entities, including every police department that wants to opt in.
A law enforcement officer can then run your license plate and see every single time that your vehicle has been tagged in the database.
Even if the camera has been purchased by an HOA or gated community, many of these entities are opting their footage into these police lookup databases too, without residents necessarily being aware.
Flock Safety and their competitors are data brokers. A city, police department, business, or homeowners association pays to borrow their cameras, and then they retain the right to make some of that data accessible behind the same licensing paywall scheme for other clients or customers.
Now, of course, they don't market themselves as data brokers. They prefer to be thought of as safety as a service, and reports say that they are helping police catch criminals.
The core of what we're trying to do is help our customers solve crime.
So what's the problem? We all want a safer world, don't we? And if an HOA wants cameras in their neighborhood, it's their right to decide. But when these cameras are installed on public infrastructure and along public roads, isn't it our right to decide? And if we're going to quietly create a dragnet surveillance network of everyone's movements, shouldn't we at least have a discussion as a society about it first? But this conversation didn't happen. These cameras just appeared without people even realizing. In fact, in some cities, Flock even put up their cameras on public roads without even getting permits from the city or asking permission.
Near Orlando, Florida, for example, they installed nearly 100 cameras on public roadways without even notifying the county.
In Goodyear, our police department started putting these cameras up before they were even approved by our city council.
The reason we might want to talk about this is simple. This is a mass surveillance program.
Can actually create a traceable path of the car moving through the city as long as it's being picked up by the flock cameras.
Correct. And it would be difficult to drive anywhere of any distance without running into a camera somewhere.
In a free society, the people are supposed to decide whether this kind of surveillance is acceptable, not just have it handed down by a company and quietly adopted by the police.
When they have that much data on individuals, you can really create an intimate picture of people's lives. You can make all sorts of inferences about who they are, what their political persuasions are. You know anything and everything about their private life.
Let's talk about why having a database with all this sensitive information is dangerous. First,
police can access it without a warrant.
this is actually a huge risk we don't talk about enough. There's a reason we have warrants.
Warrants are a good invention. A warrant's a safeguard to make sure that the government is not overstepping its bounds and being a dictator and going through people's stuff and effects. You want to make sure that there's like an articulable reason that you're stopping someone.
Without requiring a specific reason for conducting a search on someone and having a judge sign off on it, it can lead to all kinds of abuse from unchecked power.
There's no controls on how it can be used. Someone can go out and pull that data whenever they want if they just don't like you.
Shortly after the span of Black Lives Matter protests, police officers fairly routinely would use license plate readers to gather data on who attended those. Since then, license plate readers have been pretty regularly used at protests. And once you know who's at those rallies, you can follow them elsewhere and see the kind of social network they have, who their friends are, what other things that they're involved in, and you can really map out people's lives. Police have used this to poke around gun shows to see who the participants are. Police are able to document who's been at political rallies, what kind of church they go to. In Alabama and the state of New York, police are patrolling mosque parking lots to pick up a bunch of data on who's attending those places, which is kind of a blatant religious discrimination. Maybe the government doesn't explicitly make a firearms registry, but it's very easy to infer that someone has a firearm if they drive to a gun range.
This footage has also been illegally shared with departments that shouldn't have access to it. Because this is a private company managing these databases, there's limited accountability when it comes to how police are using this search tool.
There's no limits or requirements on how often it's audited to see when the police officers have pulled up the information.
There's pretty perverse incentives with this technology.
In Kansas, police were caught using flock cameras to stalk their exes.
In fact, a police chief used flock cameras 228 times in 4 months to stalk his ex-girlfriend and her new partner. In New Jersey, a similar situation.
Some police officer showed up to a little league game trying to beat up some guy he thought was cheating on his ex-girlfriend or something.
Oh my God. A DC officer admitted that he used license plate databases to extort people whose cars were parked outside a gay nightclub.
He would go patrol around the venue, collecting all the license plates that were there at particular times of the night, and then he'd blackmail these people. So they'd extort them for large sums of money.
And what about hackers who might get access to these databases? When so many people already have access, keeping them secure becomes almost impossible.
I'm worried about someone getting in and getting that data and access to the cameras and to be able to know if I'm home or if I'm out of the state. Is it a good time to break into my home? Is it a good time to track my wife? The amount of abuse that can be done by just tracking my vehicle is pretty grave.
And you don't even necessarily need to hack into these databases to get access to the footage. Often the cameras themselves haven't even been secured properly.
In a couple small towns that I audited, if one camera wasn't secured, none of them were, allowing anyone the capability of tracking every single vehicle in the town indefinitely without ever having to see or write a line of code.
And what happens when these databases outlive their original purpose and get weaponized for something else entirely?
Once you have this tool at your disposal, now you want to use it naturally.
So we have dragnet surveillance being rolled out across the country without any judicial oversight. How did this even happen?
You'd think that they would have to get special permission if they want to set up, some sort of pervasive surveillance program.
Yeah, you would think so.
The Fourth Amendment is meant to protect us from mass surveillance by requiring the government to get a warrant before collecting information about us.
If law enforcement wants to track your location via phone for a prolonged period or even ping you beyond a single cell phone tower, they are required to have a good reason for it, and an elected judge needs to agree that it's a good enough reason by granting them a warrant. This was argued, debated, and decided by the Supreme Court in a landmark ruling from the 2018 case Carpenter v. United States.
The Supreme Court has said the government cannot track your car without a warrant, and they can't retrace your steps with information collected from third parties. It stands to reason that those two principles mean that the government requires a warrant to retroactively trace your vehicle with license plate readers.
This is kind of an egregious overstep of the Fourth Amendment.
Oh yeah, exactly. By scanning your license plate everywhere and then keeping a record of where your car has been, that's effectively a Fourth Amendment search.
So how has this been allowed to happen? Well, here is the loophole. The government can't track your location, but private companies can. Flock is allowed to put cameras in neighborhoods and build databases that map the lives of millions. But they can't mount cameras on light poles or traffic intersections without government approval. So the government gives them permission and pays for the cameras being erected, and in return, gets access to the data. It's a perfect circle. The government can't build a dragnet directly because the Constitution forbids it. Private companies can't scale a dragnet without government infrastructure. So they join forces, each side helping the other bypass the restrictions meant to protect us.
What typically happens is a city government will contract with a vendor. They'll buy so many cameras. The vendor will then set them up. They're usually mounted on city infrastructure, usually like telephone poles or street lights. Some cities will choose to put them on things like garbage trucks or city buses, and then the vendors are kind of obligated to maintain them. And then the information usually just gets sent over to the local police department.
But the police justify it by saying,
the vendor's the one who's collecting the data, which is publicly available. We're just like the innocuous recipients of it.
When you're proactively procuring cameras and contracting with companies to get the data from said cameras, there's nothing passive about that.
No, not at all. It definitely rises above just innocuous observation.
There's also something called the mosaic theory of privacy. The mosaic theory says one tile might not show much, but put enough tiles together and you see the whole picture of someone's life.
Individual little bits of information can be legally gathered, but once you combine all those bits of information, now you have like a full picture. So once you have the full picture, then it becomes illegal. So you might say it's legal to take pictures of people's cars, but imagine a scenario where we're taking thousands of pictures of your car and we're able to recreate your travel patterns. I think that's the point at where it triggers constitutional and privacy problems.
Courts have also ruled that retroactively going through location data when there was no warrant in place at the time this data was collected violates your reasonable expectation of privacy.
The government's not legally allowed to retrace your steps with data that it's collected, up to usually a few days.
You took my sonar concept and applied it to every phone in the city. With half the city feeding you sonar, you can image all of Gotham. This is wrong.
So, one of the things that people can do is voice their opinions about this and push back if they disagree with having these in their community. And there are already people pushing back, like the Navy veteran and healthcare worker in Norfolk, who are suing the city because the 172 flock cameras there make it functionally impossible to live life without government tracking.
With this lawsuit, I hope to end the illegal and unconstitutional surveillance.
Denver, Colorado rejected a $666,000 expansion of flock cameras, citing community concerns. Austin, Texas let its flock contracts lapse, citing fears the data was being used for immigration crackdowns. Eureka, California voted down plans to install 21 cameras. Gig Harbor, Washington refused to install 10 cameras. Even judges are suppressing evidence obtained from flock cameras, recognizing that prolonged surveillance requires a warrant. Otherwise, it violates the Fourth Amendment.
I think the most high impact thing that they could do is just lean on their local representatives, identify the issue, say, hey, this is a potential privacy and constitutional problem. We need to have a plan in place that ensures that citizens are protected and safe.
We can also advocate for legal guardrails for police.
Make sure that there's limits on how long they could keep the records.
Flock says that they only store data themselves for 30 days.
But what I found in my research is that these cities can extend contracts to hold our information for a year and even more. It's only $3,300 to say to Flock, hey, we want an extension on this contract.
When police and government agencies collect this data, they are usually storing it for anywhere between 5 and 10 years in some cases. New Hampshire has one of the most interesting policies because they say that police have to delete the records within 3 minutes if they don't think it's related to a crime. That solves a lot of problems. Compare that to Los Angeles, which keeps the data for like a minimum of 5 years.
Wow. And then there's the issue of awareness. This fight isn't just about one company. It's about whether we accept living in a society where all movement is under constant surveillance, where freedom of movement and association starts to require permission.
I wouldn't even be surprised if most people didn't even know automated license plate readers exist. Not only is there an awareness issue with the technology itself, but I think there's an awareness issue with data sharing arrangements, who gets to see what, how long do they get to see it, how is this being used by police officers or law enforcement on the ground, are there other government agencies that are purview to this information and data, and so forth.
There's also a community-driven website called dflock.me that shows you where the flock cameras are located in your neighborhood, and you can also report cameras that you find. Flock sent them a cease and desist, and the Flock CEO said this about them.
Unfortunately, there's terroristic organizations, like DFlock, whose primary motivation is chaos.
Wait, what? Making a community map of publicly visible cameras makes you a terrorist? Beware, there are people in your community who want privacy and don't want some company to track them everywhere they go. Clearly, these people are dangerous. Okay. There's also another website called eyesonflock.com that tries to provide transparency into how pervasive this surveillance is. This is the number of cars that they estimate have been tracked since you started watching this video. Whoa. And finally, there's one more course of action I'll mention. Some people might be tempted to cover their license plates as they drive around, but this is highly illegal. I do not recommend it. What if you just wanted to trick the AI without obfuscating your license plate? Well, Ben Jordan made an amazing video, hypothetically exploring this.
He wants to confuse the AIs using something called adversarial noise.
The idea behind adversarial noise is to
generate abstract, invisible license plate overlay patterns that cannot be detected by humans, but make license plate recognition systems utterly shit the bed. I thought it would be fun to print out the noise on transparent adhesive sheets where you will have tiny bits of noise on your plate. Some will be more or less conspicuous than others.
Hey officer, it's just a little mud from all my off-roading.
But again, his testing was just hypothetical and not something he recommends because it's very likely illegal.
Definitely not something you would actually want to put on your car and drive on public roadways unless you miss your friends in prison.
But there's no reason we can't experiment with this stuff and keep looking for solutions.
The reason I develop things like this is because the people that we've elected to protect our privacy rights aren't doing their jobs. So if we want any sort of defense from this, we need to roll up our sleeves and use technology to defend ourselves. You're going to need a whole lot of people working creatively on solutions and sharing that information with one another.
So to wrap up, those who support automatic license plate readers will cherry pick success stories about the good that they do.
They are selling it to our lawmakers as we need to keep kids safe in our school zones. We need to keep our streets safe and this and that and the other. But at what price?
We can't just look at the benefits of this technology. We must also weigh the costs. And the reality is that mass surveillance tools are always abused to stalk people, to intimidate political opponents, and to target vulnerable communities. And we have no idea how they might be used in the future. Imagine the most dangerous person you can think of in power. And now imagine that they inherit the surveillance system that you just said yes to. We need to get back to a place of warrant requirements and checks and balances because the cost of dragnet surveillance of hundreds of millions of innocent people is just too high.
As soon as you leave your door, you're immediately being surveilled. And if not by your cell phone, then by license plate reader with your car, satellites and so forth.
I now live in a community where I cannot get in or out of my neighborhood without a flock camera watching me. I don't need Big Brother building up an entire lifetime of my whereabouts. It's just none of their business.
This isn't just about driving around in your car. It's about whether privacy and freedom can exist outside your front door. Freedom of movement isn't really free if you can't go anywhere without being tracked. And I'm not quite ready to give up my freedom of movement yet. NBTV is a project of the Ludlow Institute, a non-profit research and media institute that educates people about how to reclaim ownership of their digital lives. Help us shift culture around privacy. Visit ludlowinstitute.org/donate to support our mission. And a huge thank you to all of you who have been supporting us. It really does mean the world. There are also other ways for you to support us. For example, we have a merch shop that has some really cool clothes that you can check out and purchase if you like them. Ooh, it's origin story time.
Several years ago, my brother and I were traveling back from my parents' house, and we have like some flashing lights behind us. And then like 5 other cop cars show up. And then they do this whole thing of like, take out the key from the ignition, put it on top of the roof, stick your hands out of like the window. But then out of nowhere, I get tackled from behind. A police officer just like starts cursing at me. He has a gun like straight to the back of my head. And he's like, oh, you don't do this to cops or whatever. And I was like, I don't know what you're saying, man, but I was following your orders exactly. Some 40 minutes later, they're like, yeah, we thought your car was stolen. So the sheriff's department was operating on the information that the car was stolen, pulled us over, assumed we were car thieves, wasn't stolen. The police never updated the stolen car records. It's only a matter of time where someone's gonna get shot or something.
Was this a catalyst event for you to get you more interested in this surveillance?
Yeah, I think so.
And now Hofer has become one of the most fierce advocates against this technology. Seems like they screwed with the wrong guy. Try saying this 10 times really fast. There's a reason why we require warrants. There's a reason why we There's a reason why we require warrants. I can't even say it once. There's a reason why we require warrants. I give up.